The message came late at night, no warning, no phone call before it, just a soft vibration on my nightstand that pulled me out of sleep. I reached for my phone, still half asleep, expecting nothing more than a reminder, or maybe a holiday photo. It was from my son. The message was short: "Don't come this Christmas." I read it once, then again. I didn't cry. I didn't feel angry. I just sat there in the dark, staring at the screen, feeling something inside me go very still. Because Christmas wasn't just another day to me. Christmas was the one day every year that reminded me I still had a family. Before this story goes any further, please stay with me. And if real stories about family, betrayal, and quiet strength matter to you, subscribe to Grandama Moments. These are the lessons no one prepares you for until it's almost too late. I'm not a difficult mother. I want to say that clearly, because I know how these stories sound from the outside. I've never been the kind of woman who shows up uninvited or offers opinions that weren't asked for. I never criticized how my son lived, how he dressed, or how he spent his money. I raised him to stand on his own. After his father died, it was just the two of us for a long time. No grandparents nearby, no siblings to lean on, just me and a little boy who suddenly needed more strength than any child should have to carry. I remember the day I got the phone call, a Tuesday morning, no warning, no goodbye. By the time I reached the hospital, my husband was already gone, and just like that, life became quieter and heavier. I learned how to be strong in small ways. I learned how to pay bills alone, how to fix things myself, how to smile when people said, "You're so brave," even when I didn't feel brave at all. Most of all, I learned how to be steady for my son. I worked extra hours. I saved carefully. I made sure the house always felt safe. I never let him see how scared I was. As he grew older, I realized something important. Love has to change shape. When children are small, love is loud. It schedules and rules and reminders. But when they grow up, love becomes quieter. You don't guide every step anymore. You don't hold them the same way. You let go, slowly, carefully, and you hope you did enough. I thought I had. Christmas was the one tradition I held on to, not because I needed control, but because it made life feel complete. Nothing fancy, no matching pajamas or elaborate decorations. Just a tree in the corner of the living room, a table set with care, and food made from recipes that carried memories. When my son was younger, Christmas mornings started before sunrise. He'd stand in the hallway, pretending to be patient, waiting for permission to open his gifts. Those mornings stayed with me, even after he grew up, even after the house became quieter. When he got married, I adjusted. I didn't insist they come to my house anymore. I didn't complain when holidays were divided between families. I told myself this was normal. This was what a healthy distance looked like. At first, things were fine. He still called, still laughed the same way he always had, still asked for my advice from time to time. But after the wedding, something shifted. Not suddenly. Quietly. Phone calls became shorter. Plans were made later and canceled sooner. When I visited, I noticed my son looked at his wife before answering even simple questions. "Do you want some coffee?" He'd glance at her first. "Are you staying long?" He'd hesitate. I told myself I was imagining it. I didn't want to be the kind of mother who blamed everything on the woman her son married, so I stayed polite. I stayed warm. I stayed quiet. And I reminded myself, again and again, this is his life now. Still, Christmas mattered to me, not because I needed to be the center of attention, but because I wanted to be remembered. Every year, I send a card early. Every year, I asked gently, "What day works best for you?" And every year, I accepted whatever answer I was given. Until this one. "Don't come this Christmas." I read it again the next morning. There was still no follow-up. No explanation. I noticed something else. Then, there was no mom at the beginning, no apology, no warmth, just a sentence that felt final. I typed back carefully, "Is everything okay?" The reply came an hour later. "My wife doesn't want you here." That sentence hurt more than the first one, because now, it wasn't just rejection, it was to blame. And suddenly, small moments from the past year began lining up in my mind. The way conversations ended abruptly when she entered the room. The way holiday plans changed after private discussions. The way my presence had slowly become inconvenient. I didn't respond. I sat at my kitchen table with a cup of coffee that went cold in my hands. I thought about all the times I had swallowed my feelings to keep the peace, all the times I told myself I was being mature, and I wondered when being considerate had turned into being invisible. That afternoon, I went for a walk. The air was cold enough to sting my cheeks. Christmas lights were already going up around the neighborhood. I passed houses glowing with warmth, windows filled with trees and decorations, families laughing inside. And for the first time in years, I felt something I hadn't expected. Not jealousy, loneliness. When I got home, my phone was still silent. No clarification, no second thought. I sat in my living room and looked around, the framed photos, at the couch where my husband used to nap, at the bookshelf my son had built for me in high school. And that's when something inside me shifted, not into anger, into clarity. I didn't reply to the message, I didn't argue, I didn't defend myself. I didn't ask to be included. Instead, I smiled, because there was one thing my son didn't know, one thing he had never asked about, one thing that made his message feel very premature. He thought Christmas was about invitations. He thought the house was his dot, and he thought I would quietly accept being pushed aside. But there was something he had forgotten. Something important. And as I sat there alone, in the house he told me not to come down, I realized this Christmas was going to be very different. I'd slept better that night than I had in weeks. That surprised me. You'd think a message like that, "Don't come this Christmas," would keep a mother awake, replaying every memory, questioning every mistake. But it didn't, because once the shock passed, something steadier took its place. Clarity. The next morning, I made coffee the same way I always did. Same mug, same quiet kitchen, same sunlight creeping across the floor. And as I sat there, I realized something important. My son thought Christmas was about invitations. He thought it was about who controlled the table, the tree, the guest list. But Christmas had never been about that for me. It was about truth. And the truth was, he didn't know everything. Years ago, after my husband died, I made a decision that felt small at the time, but it turned out to be the most important decision of my life. I kept the house in my name, not out of fear, not out of mistrust, out of survival. When you lose someone suddenly, you learn that stability matters more than sentiment. People assume a widow is fragile, that she needs help making decisions, that she should hand things over and let others manage them. I didn't. I listened, I learned, and I protected myself quietly. The house stayed mine. No shared ownership, no assumptions. My son never asked, and I never volunteered the information. As he grew older, I let him believe what most children believe, that the house would always be there, that it was part of his future by default. I didn't correct him, because love doesn't usually come with footnotes. When he married, things accelerated. Suddenly, decisions weren't just about him anymore, they were about them, and slowly, subtly, conversations shifted from we to you. You should think about downsizing. You should let us handle things. You should trust your family. Those words sound harmless until you hear them often, enough to understand what they mean. After the Christmas text, days passed, no apology, no reconsideration. I didn't chase him. That's something age teaches you. When someone pushes you away, chasing only confirms that they were right to do it. So I waited, and then I made a phone call. Not to my son. To my lawyer. He had helped me years ago, when my husband passed. A calm man, methodical, never dramatic. When I explained the situation, he didn't sound surprised. He simply said, "You did the right thing keeping everything in order." Those words landed heavier than he probably realized, but because, for the first time, I understood something clearly. I wasn't powerless. A few days before Christmas, my son finally called. His voice sounded different, less confident. He asked if I was upset. I told him I wasn't. That confused him. Then he asked why I hadn't responded. Told him the truth. I didn't have anything to say. There was silence on the line. The kind of silence that fills space instead of emptying it. He mentioned Christmas plans, decorations, guests, the house. The house. That was when I said it. Calmly, without accusation. "You know the house is still in my name, right?" Another silence. Longer this time. He laughed nervously and said, "Well, it's always been home." "Yes," I replied, "mine." That conversation changed everything. Not immediately, but permanently. 2 days later, he showed up at my door. No warning. Just standing there. hands in his pockets, looking like a boy again, instead of a man. He didn't come inside right away. He asked if we could talk tough, so we did. He told me he didn't mean the message the way it sounded. Those things had been stressful, that his wife felt overwhelmed, that it just came out wrong. I listened. That's another thing age teaches you. Listening doesn't mean agreeing. Then he asked the question he should have asked years ago. What will happen to the house someday? I didn't answer right away. I looked at him, really looked at him, and I realized something painful. He hadn't been cruel, he'd been careless, and carelessness hurts just as much. I don't know, I said finally. That depends on respect, on honesty, on how you treat the people who built the foundation you're standing on. I didn't say those words. I didn't have to. He heard them anyway. That night, Christmas came and went quietly. No dinner table filled with noise. No dramatic confrontation. Just peace. And for the first time, I understood something deeply. Justice doesn't always arrive loudly. Sometimes it arrives as understanding. A few days later, my son apologized. Not the quick kind, the uncomfortable kind, the kind that takes effort. He admitted he'd let someone else speak for him, that he'd assumed things instead of asking, that he forgot where he came from. I didn't gloat. I wasn't punished. I simply told him this: respect isn't automatic. It's something you practice. The house is still mine, not as a weapon, but as a reminder that boundaries are not cruelty, that silence can be strength, and that mothers don't stop being human just because their children grow up. If you're listening to this and you felt pushed aside, if you've been told to stay quiet for the sake of peace, remember this: love does not require erasing yourself, and dignity is not something you lose with age. If this story resonated with you, and if real stories about family, betrayal, and quiet strength matter to you, please subscribe to Grandama Moments, because some lessons come late in life, but they still matter.